I understand firsthand how chaotic and challenging it can be to deal with self-harm. Not knowing how to stop yourself, especially in those very overwhelming moments, fearing what other people may think of you and your scars, as well as how they will perceive you, and so much more emotional turmoil that comes with self-harming. But I can confidently say that I have fully recovered from self-harming, and I have been clean for 3 years now. So I would love to share with you what has helped me on this journey. In this video, I am referring to physical self-harm, but everything that I will be sharing with you can also be applied to emotional self-harm and self-destructing tendencies. Now, as I always preface in my videos are never a how-to guide. This is simply my experience and things that have helped me along the way. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed that your life will change or that any of this information will help you, but if it does, then I am very glad. Before I get into what has helped me as well as my own personal experience, I do just want to say that with any growth, I think that it is really important that you consciously make the decision to actually want to improve. I know that whenever people have wanted me to change for their own benefit, I've never really felt inclined to change for myself. So when you make that choice on your own accord, I think it makes all the difference. And even if you don't know what you are doing it for yet, and you don't think you have a clear reason why you want to stop, along the way, the intrinsic motivation of doing it for you and to help yourself becomes more than enough. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with self-harm. The reality of this particular journey of mine is extremely messy. I did relapse many times, and there were so many intrusive, uncontrollable thoughts that haunted me for a very long time. Like any journey, this one is not going to be linear, and there are going to be moments where you do feel like you mess up, and moments that feel very lonely, moments that won't make much sense to you because it will be all over the place and so chaotic. It is very important that in these times you develop a foundation of self-care and self-love. It's not as easy as just saying that, oh, I'm gonna love myself and everything will change. Of course, self-love is so important and it's a very crucial part in, I think, any situation in life, really, to have that foundation within yourself that you can come home to. But it is also okay if you don't have that foundation, if it's something that you build over time. My experience was very messy. It was a roller coaster. And in fact, when I had initially stopped self-harming, I had relied on other vices and other unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs and seeking validation. The way that I see it now is very enlightening, and I think that I really did have to go through all of that in order to finally realize that this is not how I want to cope with my life. This is not what I want to be doing forever, and this is not what I deserve. I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody, but sometimes, like in my case, learning the harder way is what is meant for our journeys. Not that I believe that I or any of you deserve a hard life and deserve for things to not come easily to you, but learning the harder way is sometimes required. And after experiencing really difficult things for a very long time, I finally decided that, okay, this is not what I want. I'm bored of this. I want to change, which leads me back to what I was saying before about actually consciously making the decision to heal and recover on your own accord rather than somebody else telling you to. And I feel like as you grow, as you just age older and you start to mature, you start to realize that, okay, certain things are not meant for you anymore. Like, for example, how I used to cope as a 15-year-old is nowhere near where I cope now as a 19-year-old. I don't think time heals, but I do think time passing does help. So within this journey, it required me to hold myself accountable a lot, which can be a very rude awakening. It is not easy to hold yourself accountable and to be very honest with yourself to the point where you start to realize that you could be doing better, in a sense where you're victimizing yourself now. You are adding onto your sufferings. It's not easy to come to terms with, and a lot of us will be fueled by our ego and continue with this cycle of harming ourselves, then making up different reasons as to why this is what we should be doing, if any of that makes sense. When I was self-harming a lot, my thought process was I should be doing this because this is the best thing that I should be doing for myself, as I deserve it. But also in turn blaming other people for not helping me enough and not seeing me and understanding me and not doing what they can to help you get out of this cycle. Although I think that having a support system of other people is so important, and I wish that I took advantage of. It is also, like I said, important to have that foundation with yourself and to take accountability and to stop victimizing yourself in these moments, which is exactly what I did. And I did this in ways like checking in with myself very frequently. Like, I didn't even intend to do this, but I was just journaling every single day because that was genuinely what started to help me in those moments. At first, I used to think that journaling was just so cliche, so unhelpful, and it only helped certain people. If you are at least willing to check in with yourself and to understand yourself better, then that is a very big start and a massive, crucial step to actually recovering. I was able to acknowledge what my triggers were and also come up with solutions as to how I can protect myself and avoid being in certain situations that would trigger me. But if you are not into journaling and you know that, then there are other options too. Going to therapy, video diaries, or writing in your notes, or even on the notes app you can record voice notes, which I think is very helpful. And also, if you don't feel like you can do this alone, then reaching out, of course, is always going to be an option, and it is always safe to do. I think it really helps in a way where you not only regulate your nervous system, but you also learn to process your emotions in a healthy way. That way you are able to learn what works for you, learn what solutions can be put into place in order for you to, like I said, avoid certain situations where your triggers may arise. So at one point in my life, I had made a lot of friends and acquaintances with people that were also struggling similarly to me. This can be very comforting in a way where you feel like somebody understands you, but there's also the possibility that your friendship relies on mental instability. I know that whenever I was around those type of people, I would feel triggered to harm myself. So cutting off those people, if that is the case, if that's what it comes down to, then you are completely allowed to do that, because no friend should even be encouraging you to do something like that. It's all about consciously deciding to help yourself. If you have to cut off people, if you have to spend less time at a certain place, if you have to throw away certain things that remind you of your triggers, whatever it comes down to, that helps you and that is healthy and isn't harming anyone else or you, do it. Also, I do want to say that if you do document your ups and downs, those type of moments and the moments where you feel the most triggered, it makes the better days, the good days, so rewarding, because you get to read back or look back on these documented moments of difficulties of yours. When you do overcome this journey, because you will, it is a very liberating feeling knowing that you have essentially gotten out of what I call the deep end. It is really nice to document your ups and downs for that reason too, and that can also be used as motivation to keep going in the future too. I really cannot stress enough how important it is to learn about yourself, especially in the emotional sense, and knowing how you react to certain situations and if there is anything that you could improve and how to execute things better if you don't feel like you did so in an authentic way. And an example of this was when I used to feel very reluctant to reach out to people, mental health professionals, friends, family, because I had this underlying belief that my problems are going to be overlooked. I've always been told that I'm a very competent, self-composed person because I've always been able to look after myself to a certain extent. I feel like my problems were always overlooked, and the people that had it worse or that were more visibly struggling were always tended to before me, is what it felt like. So from then I felt very reluctant to reach out and to actually ask for help. But after learning that about myself and after conditioning to myself to believing that my problems are very valid and people are going to listen, I started to feel more comfortable to reaching out to therapists, to reaching out to friends, and being able to actually be vulnerable with people. If I didn't journal so much, if I didn't vent to myself or just learn about myself, then I wouldn't have known that, and I wouldn't be in this position that I'm in currently, where I'm going to have therapy in a couple of weeks and I'm going to have another outlet to rely on. So if you are also like me and you don't feel safe enough to reach out to people, I want to let it be known that it is very possible for you to overcome this obstacle, and it will take a lot of work to rewire that in your mind, because if something belief or certain behavior or habit has been ingrained within your mind for a very long time and you've grown accustomed to that, it's going to be so hard to learn to unlearn that behavior. But it is very doable and it is very possible, especially for a strong person like you. I also want to talk about finding a hobby. Yes, I do feel like the things that I'm talking about in this is very cliche, but like I said, it's just things that have helped me. I remember writing down a list of things like hobbies that I wanted to get into or at least try, and I don't know how many I wrote, but almost all of them I've gotten into. Without knowing at first, I was able to distract myself from getting back into old bad habits and behaviors. When you feel like you are about to give in to any self-harming urges, it is important to distract yourself. I feel like something that does not involve you hurting yourself or anything like that, a healthy coping mechanism. I'll give you a list of hobbies that I've tried and that I still currently work on to this day. Photography, I don't do it as much anymore, but I still love taking pictures. Diving deep into sort of like passion project where you're learning about something. For me, that's spirituality. Crocheting, I still very much love crocheting. Reading, I read daily and I love it so much. Drawing, which I haven't really been doing, but it is still very therapeutic and helpful for me. Also video games every now and then, just to like mess about. I don't take it too seriously with that one, because I do see video games, like I do see certain hobbies differently, in a sense where I feel like some involve you to be more present than others. So those are some things that help me and that could help you. I think it also really helps knowing the type of person that you are, and knowing if you lean more on the artistic side or more on the sort of like, I don't even know what the other end of the spectrum would be considered, but just knowing if you like using your hands, or if you like sort of just watching things, or I don't know, just I think knowing that is really important too. But even if you aren't an artistic person, it doesn't mean that you can't lean more towards the arts and crafts side of hobbies and interests like that. It's still very good to try. And even me, like, I don't really see myself as like artistic in a way where I sing or dance, but I would love to take a singing class, I would love to do a dancing class, and I definitely plan to do so it's also good to sort of branch out too, and not just conform to what you think will definitely help you, because you don't know everything that can help you and the extent of what will help you. Sorry, I'm just like rambling now. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is mental shifts, which is so important. All these things that I'm saying are so important, I think, because when it comes to improving and growing in any area of your life, that comes with shedding the old version of you and making space for the new version of you. The old version of me had a lot of guilt and a lot of shame from past failed friendships, and blamed herself for them not working out, and internalized certain beliefs that reminded her of parts of her childhood and not being worthy or good enough of certain good things. But the new version of me knows that she is deserving and worthy of great friendships, great work life, great career, great successes, great everything. It's really important that you don't hold on to the certain old parts of you that you resonated with at one point. As opposed to what I was talking about previously about having hobbies, I think making the mental shifts, consciously and actively making the mental shifts to improve, is a lot to do with inner work, and is also balancing out the distraction part of coping, because I do think distractions can be very useful and helpful, but I also think actually understanding yourself on a deeper level is just as important. So balancing the two out is something that has helped me. That is everything that I'm going to be speaking about in this video. If I do have more ideas and tips that I think will help you guys, or just things that I just randomly think about from my journey that I want to add on, I will be making part 2. But that is all that I have to say for now. I really hope that this video resonated with you in some way and will inspire you, motivate you, or anything beautiful like that. I want to remind you that you are very much worthy and that you can pull through this, okay? I thought it was impossible for me to even get where I am now, and I viewed self-harming as a hobby in itself, and it was very unhealthy, very toxic and detrimental for me and others in my life too. But knowing that I have not even thought about hurting myself in a very long time says it all. It speaks volumes, and I want to let you know that it is very possible for you too. And with that being said, take care of yourself. Bye. Mwah.